Welcome to the deep dive. So today, we're looking into something really personal.
Yeah, these stories of conversion to Islam, it's quite a journey people describe.
Exactly, people's actual journeys. And we've been digging into these excerpts, right, from a YouTube video.
That's the source material, yeah.
Yeah.
10 different individuals sharing, their own very personal experiences.
And our mission, what we're trying to do in this deep dive, is really unpack that, what drew them in.
What were the key moments? Are there common threads, maybe?
Yeah, looking for those insights, the things that sort of shaped their paths.
Right. And these are personal narratives, not like academic papers. They give you a unique window.
A window into belief, into transformation.
Exactly. So we're focusing on their perspectives,
Yeah.
just as they shared them. See what we can understand.
Okay, so let's start where they started. What were their lives like before Islam came into the picture?
Well, what comes through really strongly from the sources is this focus on external pursuits.
Like what kind of things?
Money, chasing women or relationships, alcohol, maybe power, status.
Right. Some even used phrases like feeling they were a superstar.
Yeah, or having a godlike complex, that kind of feeling.
Like nothing can touch me.
Exactly. That sense of being on top. But, and this is crucial,
But that's always a but, isn't there?
always, the contrast they nearly all highlight is this lack of real inner happiness, despite everything.
Yeah, you hear that so clearly. Quotes like, I was never happy.
Or nothing made me happy, it wasn't working.
Leading to that stark realization like, okay, if this stuff can't make me happy,
Right.
then nothing's going to make me happy. That kind of despair.
It sounds a bit like that whole YOLO idea, live life to the max.
Right, grab all the external excitement.
But then it just leads straight into an existential crisis when the party stops.
Precisely. That's the word some used. And feelings of being miserable, lost.
No guidance.
Yeah. And interestingly, this feeling of not having real friends.
Oh, how so? Like, the people around them were only there for the superficial stuff, maybe even wanted to see them go down with them, as one person put it.
Wow. So not real connection, just shared emptiness, maybe?
Seems like it. It really highlights how that external success just couldn't fill the void.
So, and if you ever felt that kind of search, that deep need for meaning.
Or if you found that ticking the boxes, getting the stuff, didn't actually bring that lasting joy.
You can probably relate to where these people were starting from.
Definitely.
Okay, so they're feeling this emptiness. Where does the search go from there? How does Islam even, appear on their radar, especially if some were skeptical?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting because it wasn't always a positive first look.
Some actively disliked it.
Some actually set out wanting to prove Islam was, quote, a danger or find flaws in it.
Right.
But the discovery process, sometimes it started quite unexpectedly, just encountering the Quran.
How? Like reading it or?
Sometimes just hearing it recited. That was mentioned repeatedly.
Yeah.
Finding it fascinating, attracting.
Even if they didn't understand the Arabic.
Exactly. Even without understanding the words, something about the sound, the feeling,
Yeah.
it just touched them deeply.
And beyond the sound, was there an intellectual side clicking too?
Oh, absolutely. For some, it wasn't like learning something totally alien. It felt more like a continuation
A continuation of what?
of previous messages. They started seeing Islam as this universal message, the last testament, following the line of prophets they already knew, like Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus,
Okay.
all sharing that same core message. La ilaha illallah la ilah.
That means.
There is no God but Allah, or the one God. The idea was the core message is constant, but the prophets, the messengers, were the variables for their time and place.
And that framework
Yeah,
just clicked for them.
it made perfect sense, yeah. It felt logical, like connecting the dots.
Interesting. So there's the sound, the intellectual structure. What about experiences?
Big time. The Umrah pilgrimage came up as incredibly powerful for one person.
That's the smaller pilgrimage to Mecca, right?
Right. And they described just seeing this incredible sight. So many people in one area, all races, all colors, every single country.
Wow. All there together.
All united. And crucially, united in worshiping Allah, God, not, focused on a specific human figure like the Pope or someone.
That visual must be overwhelming.
It clearly was. They
Yeah.
actually called it a potential cure for racism. Seeing that unity.
A glimpse of world peace, maybe?
That's exactly the phrase used. It was a big moment. It showed them who the really devoted people were just there for God.
Powerful stuff. And then you mentioned studying the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. That was a turning point, too.
Hugely significant for several of them, yes. His character, how he treated people.
Even enemies?
Especially enemies, in some accounts. There was one story that really stood out about a woman named Hind.
Okay, what was that story?
Well, she had been involved, quite horrifically, in the killing and mutilation of the Prophet's own uncle, Hamza, during a battle. A very personal, painful loss.
That's incredibly intense. So what happened later?
Later, when the Prophet gained authority in Mecca, basically winning after years of conflict, his response was forgiveness.
For everyone, even her.
The source highlights him announcing everybody is forgiven and bloodshedding is over now.
Yeah.
And specifically, forgiving Hind.
Forgiving someone who did that to his family.
Exactly. The person recounting this was just floored by it. To forgive that kind of act.
It's hard to imagine.
They described it as showing such a great character, something very special, not something you see every day.
And that specific act of forgiveness.
That's what convinced that person. This man must be a prophet.
Wow. Okay. Any other aspects of his character that stood out?
His adaptability. They used the word adjusting. How he could connect with anyone. Like he'd talk differently to a child than to a Bedouin nomad or an educated person or a woman. He'd sort of come down to their level, change his speech, his behavior, to give them the specific guidance they needed in a way they could understand.
That ability to connect with anyone.
They called it amazing. Truly remarkable.
And just the sheer amount he did.
Oh, yeah. Described as nonstop. I mean, managing battles, treaties, judging cases, teaching, being a warrior, a general, head of state, husband, friend.
It sounds exhausting just listing it.
Right. And the source attributes this capacity to divine command. Why? Like God mandated this level of activity for him to fulfill his mission.
Okay, so they're encountering these ideas, the Quran, the prophet's love, having these experiences. But it wasn't always a smooth ride to acceptance, was it? There was pushback.
Definitely an internal struggle described. That's a really key part. One person shared how they realized accepting the prophet meant saying the Shahada.
The declaration of faith.
Right, and they felt they were right there, almost Shahada.
On the edge.
And their immediate reaction, panic. Like, close the books, stop. This is going in the wrong direction.
Actively trying to stop themselves from believing.
Yeah, resisting the conclusion their own research was leading them to.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, that internal resistance.
It really is. And then there was that story about the books falling. That sounds very symbolic.
It's such a vivid image, isn't it?
Yeah.
They were literally trying to pack the books away, shut down the research.
But there were too many.
So many, they tumbled down, and the Quran fell open, specifically to a verse in Surah 22.
Do you remember which one?
Ayah 46. It says something like, it's not the eyes that are blind, but the hearts.
Wow.
And the person felt it was speaking directly to them, like, that's me. My eyes see it, my mind gets it, but my heart is resisting.
Attributing it to ego, maybe? Or nafs, the self?
That's how they interpreted it, yeah. The block wasn't intellectual, it was deeper in the heart.
So facing that kind of internal conflict, what did they do?
Well, one person described reaching a point of just praying for a sign, asking God directly.
Asking for clarity. Certainty.
Yeah, asking to be 100% sure. And the result they described,
What happened?
waking up the next morning and feeling just this profound sense of security, calm.
Like a weight lifted.
Exactly. All the anxiety, the doubt that had been churning inside them, just gone. Vanished like snow in the sun was the description.
That's poetic.
And that feeling, that shift, led to this simple, clear thought, I think I'm a Muslim.
So for many, it seems like the final step wasn't about becoming someone totally different.
No, often the feeling was more like a continuation or adjusting, not a complete break from who they were.
And that idea of reverting.
Right, the concept that everyone is actually born Muslim, born with an innate sense of a higher power, but society or upbringing can lead you away from that.
So conversion is like returning to that natural state.
That's how they described it. And that return, the best feeling in the world.
And the actual act of saying the Shahada, making the declaration.
One person described it physically, feeling that heaviness being lifted from me, like a burden was gone.
And even sleeping differently.
Yeah, slept differently that night, a real sense of peace setting in.
So if we were to sum up that internal journey,
it really seems to move from that external searching and feeling lost
through the intellectual exploration, the experiences, wrestling with the doubts,
to finally arriving at this place of heartfelt acceptance. A sense of coming home, almost.
finding peace.
Finding internal peace, exactly.
Okay, so they've made this shift. They've embraced Islam. How do they talk about the impact now? What are the benefits they describe?
Oh, the language here is really strong. Very consistent across the accounts.
Like what?
Finding ultimate purpose. Finally understanding life's purpose.
That sense of meaning they were missing before?
Exactly. And Islam itself is described as, well, almost everything. A cure for everything. An answer to every problem.
A guide to life.
A guide to life, a way of life, the solution, the truth. Really comprehensive terms.
And personally, how does it feel day to day?
The outcome described is finding peace to your soul and peace to your heart.
And just happier.
Yeah, becoming much more happy. That comes through very clearly.
So given these really profound transformations they've described, what's the message they'd want to share, particularly with non-Muslims?
Several key messages seem to emerge. First, there's an effort to connect on just a basic human level.
How so?
By acknowledging shared struggles. We all deal with sadness, loss, grief. We all question our purpose sometimes, recognizing that for many, the external fun just isn't working.
It doesn't satisfy that deeper need.
Right. And so they encourage deeper thinking, getting beyond the day-to-day rush.
One quote was something like, "We got so caught up in living that we don't think much."
Exactly. Pushing people to ask those big questions. What are we living for? And why are we living?
And they suggest a starting point for that reflection could be just looking around.
Yeah. Observing nature, look at a rose, bees working, the ocean, even a single leaf.
And ask what?
Ponder the purpose you see in creation. If these things have a function, a purpose, then extend that question to yourself. What is my purpose?
Thinking from the creation back to the self.
Precisely. And then a really, really critical piece of advice is about how you seek.
The attitude you bring to it.
Absolutely. Sincerity. The word used is ikhlas, being truly sincere in your search for God, for truth.
There was a powerful quote about that.
Yeah. If you're sincere, if you really want God, you want Allah, you will find it. The belief that sincerity itself is key.
So sincerity in the search. What else?
A huge emphasis on doing your own research.
Not just relying on
media narratives or political agendas or what you hear secondhand about Islam. Don't just accept it blindly.
They encourage practical steps.
Very practical. Talk to actual Muslims. Visit a mosque. Speak to an imam, a knowledgeable leader. Read reliable sources.
Taking ownership.
Yes. The point made was you're always responsible for your own knowledge. You can't outsource that responsibility.
Okay. And when evaluating Islam itself, where should people look?
The advice was clear. Look to the source. The example of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he's the guide, the standard.
And not judge Islam
by the actions of individual Muslims. They were quite open about this, saying, look, many Muslims, maybe even themselves, don't live up to the teachings perfectly.
So judge the message, not always the messenger carrying it today.
Essentially, yes. Focus on the Prophet's example.
Yeah.
And they reiterate again that Islam isn't for one group. It's a universal message for all of mankind.
And boiling it down, the core requirement.
Belief in one God, Allah, and that Muhammad is his final messenger. That's the foundation.
It's really striking how these very different personal stories all seem to end with this similar call.
Yeah, a call for sincere reflection and for independent personal investigation. Don't let others tell you what to think. Find out for yourself.
So we've really traced quite an arc today, from that initial feeling of emptiness, that search.
Through the discoveries, both intellectual and experiential.
The internal struggles and that eventual shift towards acceptance.
And ending with these powerful reflections and this consistent message to the world.
Finding purpose, finding peace.
And that call to sincerity.
It really leaves you thinking, as we wrap up, these stories, they really underline something, don't they? That this search for truth, it's not just about reading books or looking outside yourself.
No, it's described so often as something deeply internal. A matter of the heart, as that one verse put it.
So maybe the thought to leave with is, what does it mean for you personally to search with sincerity?
A powerful question.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.